On today's show, are the Boston Celtics just better than everybody else in the East? We're going to answer that question. Did Draymond Green get enough of a suspension? 5 games? That enough? We're cool with that? And the Bulls fire sale is starting. I've got Pat the Designer from Locked On Bulls here to tell me who's leaving the Chicago Bulls on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs, Locked On NBA your first listen today, or the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day and to comment anything below. Let us know, is Boston just the best team in the East? Full stop. Today's episode is brought to you by Jayson Medical. Empower yourself with the purchase of a Jayce case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at JaceMedical.com. That's J-A-S-E Medical.com. And joining me, as always, on a Thursday, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, Pat the Designer?
The Chicago Bulls have showed me that I am so glad 90s basketball is back in the 90s. My God.
33 points
and a half.
There's 24 minutes and a half of basketball.
I'm so upset after what I watched tonight. Jesus.
33 points. We're not going to talk about the Chicago Bulls versus the Orlando Magic game.
Thank you.
We will talk about the Bulls being a trading vessel for several players now. And we'll talk about that a little later. I want to talk about Draymond Green. The suspension rained down from the league office. 5 games. Enough? Not enough? We'll talk about that. Rudy Gobert had some choice comments. Was he right about those choice comments? There's some sleuthing. Like the deep dive analytical nerds were in their bag on this one. I've got a stat I want to share with you later on that. We'll do a bunch of Count It Up. Bones Highland going off on Twitter. The Wizards. I've got a bunch of different stuff for that. But I want to start here, Pat. Maybe the only good game of the night that we got in this one was the Boston Celtics. Came down to kind of the wire. The Sixers gave them a run for it late, but it ended up being 117-107 win. The Boston Celtics win. They improved to 9-2. And with this win, no Porzingis, no Jaylen Brown, and the Boston Celtics just looked so much better than a pretty healthy, except for Kelly Oubre and Nick Batum, a pretty healthy Sixers team. And you look at this one, it just kind of came down to Tatum and Derrick White showed up, and at the end, Embiid didn't do a ton, and Maxey kind of had his run in the second quarter, and they just didn't really have enough in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, I thought that this Celtics team, to me, was really putting on display what the pieces they added are really able to do, especially one Jrue Holiday, right? No Kristaps Porzingis, no Jaylen Brown. You're sitting there wondering, okay, what's going to happen? Oh, wait a minute. We've got an NBA champion on our team who knows how to do this at the highest level. Oh, and also can score the basketball if you need him to. Jrue Holiday chipping in with 18 points in this game. I mean, didn't really the only person out of tonight that really didn't get involved with the 3-ball, but you add him to the fact that bald Derrick White is balling out of his mind right now. He was 4 for 8 from the 3-point line. I thought that the Celtics just did a really good job of, listen, like when you see Tatum attacking the rim, he feels a lot more confident this season, knowing that he's got these guys on the team that he can count on at all times. Derrick White, Jrue Holiday, those two to me stand out the most. The only question about this team is the consistency of the bench play. This was a perfect game for them, and you got some really good play out of your bench. Luke Cornett, Peyton Pritchard did enough to keep you in this game, and I think that's the only question we really can have with this Celtics team. As far as the Sixers, listen, hard-fought game. They got behind. They fought their way back into it, and then they just didn't have enough at the end of the fourth quarter. That happens sometimes. But I am very impressed by what I've seen out of the Philadelphia 76ers, especially post-trade. Remember when we started off the season, I said to you that, listen, the Sixers might be better by subtraction here.
Man.
They look so much better by subtraction. The Clippers by addition.
The Clippers look better by the Clippers look like they've subtracted.
Yeah,
the Clippers look like
they did.
At this
They're
point.
all on the Sixers now.
Yeah, on the Sixers side of things, they were on a second night of a back-to-back, but it was a shorthanded Celtics team. And to me, it just looked like they were outclassed, right? Like they just didn't have the guys to go at it, and it was kind of alarming. Now, the Sixers have beaten the Celtics earlier this season. Now it's one of the Celtics' couple losses.
Yeah.
Embiid in the fourth quarter. How many shots do you think he took?
Oh, fourth quarter Embiid. Two
Exactly. I'm going to be Shaquille O'Neal on this one.
Two.
One of them was with 30 seconds left. He took basically one shot in what mattered during this game in the fourth quarter. And like, I don't know. Like, I'm not picking this team. I did this all last year, right? I did this a whole season last year with the Sixers, even with Harden and Doc Rivers and Embiid. Like, I just don't know if I can trust Maxey at this point in the playoffs. I'm not sure what I've seen from him. And then Embiid, I can't trust in the playoffs over and over again. And so I can't look at it and say, well, they beat the Celtics earlier this year. They look good. Sure, they look good. I can't put them in the same tier as Boston. And so that's why we're here right now. Is Boston just the best team in the East? And it looks like they are, right? Because of the new guys they've brought in. Porzingis has looked really great for them. The Drew Holiday, Derrick White defensive backcourt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's clamps. Like that is just next level of two guys that can just really make your life really difficult for a lot of the game. And so like I think they're head and shoulders above. There's maybe one team I would look at that say, all right, this team can probably catch that team.
The only thing that I would say to that is, one, they're still working guys in. Two, no Kelly Oubre because of the serious injury that he went through with the car accident. Prayers up to Kelly Oubre.
Sure.
Wish nothing but the best for the brother. And then Nicholas Batum inactive due to personal reasons. Nicholas Batum has been a really, really good asset for them now.
In my opinion.
I also expect Nicholas Batum to be Nicholas Batum when the playoffs come around, right? Like, how many times have we seen this from him? But I do feel like they're still going through the process of kind of working everybody in and figuring everything out. And this was a really competitive game in that third quarter. So, like, I think the Celtics right now are ahead of the Sixers 100%. And I think that's why they're ahead of them in the standings. I also think, right, you're not adding role playing. The Celtics didn't go out and add role playing pieces. The Celtics went out and added pieces that already have gotten the job done. Drew Holiday is a piece that is such an elite piece because, one, he does exactly what we've been saying the Celtics needed somebody to do for, 3 years now, where Marcus Smart was an excellent point guard for them, but he was more of a defensive-minded guy. When you wanted somebody that was going to get the offense going and could pick up the scoring load for you, you didn't have that in Marcus Smart. Now you've got that in Drew Holiday. He plays the second fiddle here with Jaylen Brown out and Kristaps Porzingis out. And on top of that, he already has that championship pedigree of, okay, this is what it's going to take for you guys to get over the hump. You're pairing that with two guys that have been right at the door. I mean, literally, one game away from an NBA champion? What did they win? They won 2 games in that series?
6 games. So.
Yeah, it only went 6. So but like they're right there trying to get an NBA championship. I believe that Drew Holiday could be the piece that pushes them over the top and gets them back on the mountaintop.
If they're all together, I mean, if they've got everybody healthy and going into the playoffs, yeah, I mean, they are right now. The only other team, the one that I alluded to earlier, is the Bucks.
Yeah.
And if the Bucks can get on the same page right now, they've got 4 losses. 2 of them were without Damian Lillard. The only 2 games Lillard missed this year, they lost those 2 games.
Yeah.
And man, then the other 2 losses, they allowed 127 points to Atlanta, 130 points to Toronto. Like, this is a very different Bucks team than we're used to.
I will say this. They won one. They won one because it was against us. They didn't have Dame. They won one for sure, but it was against us.
And then they're right now the 25th ranked defense, which is just not something we're used to with this Bucks team.
Yeah.
Listen to the split between when Giannis is on the floor and Giannis is off the floor right now. Giannis off the floor, 127.4 points allowed per 100 possessions. 127. Giannis on the court, 112.5 points per 100 possession. Literally, they go from the worst defense in the NBA when he's off the court to like a top 10 defense or close to a top 10 defense right now.
Yeah.
When he's on the court. Like that's their real big difference right there, is if Giannis is on the court, they're a better defense, and they've still got things to work out, and I think they can still get there with that duo, but that's the team to me that could catch this Celtics team, but I don't know, man. The Celtics team looks so good right away.
I was not high on Philly coming into this season. Not to say I was out on them, but I thought they would be a middle of the pack Eastern Conference team. don't sleep on them. I give Philly, like, let this team start to get a little bit of a stride. I think that
sleep on them to do what though?
Well, see, here's the thing now. Now you're talking about the Philly team that I believe you had before you decided to go out and make the trade for James Harden, where you gave away half
that team never made it out of the second round either.
Well, that team also didn't get a chance. When you had Seth Curry and Andre Drummond on that team and all that, they didn't really.
Hey, Seth had like 15 points tonight. He was excellent.
Well, no, I'm not. It's not a slander. I'm saying that team had the depth that you needed to go into a playoff and actually go do it. Now you gave all of that away to go get James Harden. And it was like, my God, Joel Embiid's tired. Why is that? Well, Andre Drummond allowed him to sit for 15 minutes of actual time.
So Paul Reed's going to do that this year?
You said what?
Paul Reed's going to do that this year for Embiid?
I don't know about Paul Reed. We'll see. We'll see where we get there. Robert Covington, you go small ball lineup. Well, Robert Covington action at the 5. We'll go small ball.
I'm not falling for it again. I'm not falling for it. It's an Embiid-led team. I'm not falling for it. He's got to prove me wrong. He's got to prove me wrong later in the season. So
yeah, we'll see where it ends up.
Right now, Celtics best team in the East, and they're pretty much head and shoulders above everybody right now. The Bucks have a chance to catch them. Sixers, they're just not in their class right now. It is what it is. They could make a move. They've got picks now. They could, they could be talking with a Zach LaVine trade or something like that. They could be in some of those talks. So coming up, let's talk about Draymond Green. Is Draymond Green getting the suspension? Does he deserve the 5-game suspension? The NBA decided it. We'll talk about that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and lines. I went earlier, and I was going to talk about the Wizards earlier. And I looked at the regular season wins. You can go check out the Chicago Bulls regular season wins.
Nobody wants that.
What do you think the over-under is for the Chicago Bulls regular season wins right now, Pat?
11.
36.5. The over-under right now. Right now for the Chicago Bulls. You can do all kinds of stuff on FanDuel. You can also, right now, if you put down $5 on a money line, you can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, now is the time to join it and to try it out. You get that $150 and you can put $5 on all kinds of other stuff and just have some fun with it. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NBA season as we're in full swing, the NFL season in full swing. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA. Locked On has launched their first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. You can go to Locked On Sports Today, and you can watch Locked On Sports Today, the show, or you can watch us. You may be watching us on there right now if you're watching this. So shout out to everybody that goes to Locked On Sports Today, watching the 24/7. You can turn it on at any point. You can watch all the big stories in sports from the local experts that know them, like us. Check out the Locked On Sports Today feed on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel as well. All right, Pat. The suspension came down for Draymond Green. 5 games from the league. Klay Thompson and Jade McDaniels also fined $25,000 in this. My question, as we're starting count it up now, with the sound that everyone loves to hate.
I forgot about that.
Everyone forgets.
I missed the week. I forgot about that. Oh, God.
Is it too much or not enough for Draymond Green? The suspension from, I guess I should put it in context. Draymond Green, Rudy Gobert got in a scuffle really early. No points had been scored in this game. They get in a scuffle. Draymond Green comes from behind him. If you haven't seen the clip, check it out on Twitter or whatever that
Please check it out.
Headlocks him and just like drags him away as Rudy Gobert is just like flailing his arms and his head is stuck in between the headlock with Draymond Green. The NBA suspends Draymond for 5 games now. Too much? Not enough.
I know people are going to look at this and say not enough because it's 5 games and you feel like for fighting you should get 10. Draymond Green just got basically lost out on $750,000. That's how much the fine is, pretty much. Or how much money he's going to lose
game checks
over the next 5 games. $750,000. I think that I would hope that Draymond Green understands with $750,000 missing from your bank account, maybe I shouldn't choke people out. Now, I need to also.
Do you think he'd notice that missing from his bank account?
You know what? Listen, I don't think after being in NFL locker rooms and hearing some of the conversations and stuff like that, they still think of the same amount of money as we do. Like, They may spend it a little more often, but like 20 bands is still 20 bands. There's a lot of money, dog. Like,
career salary game. Let's play the career salary game for Draymond Green.
Career salary? I mean, we're probably talking 150 mil.
156. Almost nailed that one.
I'd say about that. Listen,
and he's got this year. They have that doesn't even count. This year at 22 million. Next year at 24. Next year at 20. The year after that 26, 27 and a half. The year after that.
Listen,
I mean,
he'll make the bread back, but it's
doing
still
all right.
$750,000, guys. Like that's real money out here. That's not like monopoly money. Also, Rudy Gobert did not deserve that. Now, maybe he deserved it for all the things Rudy Gobert has
did he have it coming just in general?
But in that moment, he did not deserve that. Karl Anthony Towns, you're wild. I'm with Pat Bev on this. If y'all saw the Pat Bev pod, it's a Pat connection out here. You're wild for letting your mans get choked out like that.
Oh, for not coming to his aid and not like pulling him away?
Just looked at him with a mad face. I would punch you if this wasn't an NBA game. You're wild.
Cat was trying to decide. He was trying to decide which voice to use.
For sure. He said, I have to do something, but I also am on board with choking out Rudy Gobert. That's what that was at the end of the day. I don't care what anybody says. You're wild, Karl Anthony Towns.
5-game suspension. He's going to miss 2 games against the Thunder, a game against Houston, a game against the Suns, and a game against the San Antonio Spurs in that stretch. He'll be back for the Sacramento Kings game, which becomes pretty spicy then. That's a TNT game. Draymond returns. Kings Warriors, that's always spicy. That's must watch TV.
Do you think there's validity to the Rudy Gobert comments about anytime Steph's not on the court that he gets himself kicked out because he doesn't want to play?
According to John Krasinski of The Athletic, Rudy Gobert called Draymond Green's choke clown behavior, said that he knew as soon as he heard Steph was out, he knew Draymond Green was going to try to get ejected. Gobert was asked about Draymond. He said, every time Steph doesn't play, he doesn't want to play without his guy, Steph. So he does anything he can to get ejected. The sleuths, the NBA nerds, the analytics of which I am one, Dan Feldman, Tom Haberstroh, and others, all looked into it. And they found that in the last 5 years, Draymond Green has got ejected in 2% of games with Steph Curry in. So 3 out of 160 games that he's played with Steph. So 2% of games when Steph plays. He's got ejected from 9% of games when Steph is not there. 7 of 74. So for at least 7 of those situations of the last 5 years, it's been true. And probably with the leash Draymond gets, and from the things he does, you'd think he'd get ejected more than that. But with the leash he has, maybe he tried and he just didn't get ejected for any of those things.
I think there's also that part where Steph is just also like, I'm not going to let you get thrown from this game. Because Stephen Curry has been that guy where he's like, you got to understand the moment. You can't get tossed right now. Like, we actually need you. Shut up. And then Draymond will be like, oh, okay, I'm going to just go over here. Yeah, I mean, like, I think there's also there's nobody else who can calm down Draymond in that moment. Who's going to do it? Jordan Poole? Get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. I don't just hit people. I
can't believe I still have that drop.
I don't just hit people. But he does choke.
I do just choke people, though. I don't hit. Whoa.
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo.
Yeah, it's 5 games for Draymond Green. Seems like a lot, but also doesn't seem like enough to me.
It's
because
weird.
I think that there's a history of Draymond Green just doing stuff, kicking people in the nuts, punching a teammate, all kinds of stuff. With Draymond. 5 games. I don't know. He's back for the Kings game. I'll be fascinated to see that game.
The NBA suspensions are weird though, because it's like 5 games for a chokeout, but 25 for a pistol. Like, what are we doing suspension wise here? Like, we got to figure out a means here. Something a little more online. It feels like the NFL now.
Yeah, who knows? Coming up, let's talk about the Chicago Bulls.
Oh no.
Speaking of needing to get online, the Chicago Bulls. Let's talk about when was it actually time to move Zach LaVine, and are they ready for a full rebuild now? We'll talk about that coming up.
I don't want to.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jayce Medical. I got my Jayce case right here to give you 5 antibiotics that help you with all kinds of different sicknesses, infections, things that would happen during an emergency. Go check out them at jacemedical.com, JASE.com. One verified customer said this about Jayce: I am thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut my pills in half, and I ordered most of my daily meds in a year's supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. That's the key right there, to feel secure. I know that if something happens and I can't get to a drugstore, or they break down, or something happens, I know that I can feel secure with it. Prices are lower than pharmacies. I highly recommend for everyone. That's what one Jayce customer says. If you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily medication, go to jacemedical.com. If you got a cough like Pat and then you can't get to medication, you need a Jayce case. Go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Again, jacemedical.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. Locked On NBA. I did it twice. Locked On NBA. Being part of this show. Tomorrow, Wes Goldberg, Adam Mares. Always great stuff from them. Should be another good slate of games. Got it all covered for you on Locked On NBA daily, 5 days a week. All right, Pat, you didn't know that your mic wasn't muted during
Did not. I did not.
Professional broadcaster, Pat.
Yeah, my bad.
Pat, the designer.
It's on me.
All right, let's play Count It Up a little bit more. We're continuing it. We're going to talk about the Chicago Bulls. According to Shams Charania this week, NBA teams are probing the availability of Bulls' two-time All-Star Zach LaVine. And there's increased openness from both sides about exploring a trade. The Athletics Chicago Bulls writer Darnell Mayberry also said, one league source told me this week the Bulls won't have the same roster in a month. Change feels imminent in Chicago. So my first question is, when was it actually time to move on from Zach LaVine? Is it now, or should it have happened already?
I think a lot of people would say that it should have happened already. I'm more on the now train because you wanted to see if he was going to take that next step. Listen, the Bulls have been scorned by moving on from a player too soon before. Larry Markkinen goes on, he goes to Cleveland, kind of goes through his growing pains, and then he goes out to Utah, and all of a sudden he's a world beater player, right? Like now all of a sudden he could play basketball, and the Bulls didn't take into account the situation that Larry was in versus what was actually happening in Chicago. And now Lowry goes on to a better situation. It works out for him. I think with Zach LaVine now, they didn't want to see that situation happen. You still can get a great haul for Zach LaVine if you're AK right now in Mark Eversley. And yeah, people might be down on him, but I love the conversation of we're down on Zach LaVine right now as far as draft capital, but everybody wants him, right? Everybody's coming up with their draft package to go get Zach LaVine all of a sudden. And so I'm okay with now being the time. A lot of people would say they would have done it sooner. They would have done it in the offseason. But me personally, I'm okay with now being the time because I think now you have your answer on, yep, there's no injury. There's nothing else that's hindering. There's no other excuses. And you still look like the same team.
Yeah, it felt like the Bulls were clinging on to like a small sample size from last season of like, it'll work. If it's all together, it'll work, right? Even without Lonzo, like that's not going to happen. It'll work. And the beginning of the season, one game in, they had the players only meeting. It's like, okay, now it's time to move on from this. And, it sounds like, there's rumors that the Bulls like ownership and front office, like they're all willing to do a rebuild now, right? Like my next question was going to be, are they ready for a rebuild?
Here's the tough part, right? The GM I think the Bulls are ready to move on from Zach LaVine. I've been hearing for over a year, and I've said this on Locked On Bulls a couple of times, that Michael Reinsdorf was not all the way enamored with Zach LaVine, that he was not fully bought in with who Zach LaVine was.
I thought Gordon should have won the dunk contest.
And well, I don't know about that, but he was all in. We all thought Aaron Gordon should have won that dunk contest. I'm not gonna lie, but Zach's dunks were crazy. Let's not disrespect Zach LaVine, but no, just that he's Mike. From what I've heard, Michael Reinsdorf has never felt like Zach LaVine was a true number one, but he wanted to see if he could ascend to that and was willing to invest money in AK following that plan. The thing that I need Bulls fans and everybody around the NBA to understand is the Chicago Bulls team probably won't go into a full rebuild because of where Acme comes from. You think about the Denver Nuggets. They've never been a team that we've really seen rebuild anything. The Denver Nuggets have not been a sub-30 win team since 2003. Like, they do not blow it up. They go out there, they add savvy veterans or whatever you want to call it. They continue to try and build through the slow process, the long-term process. We'll just find our guy eventually through the draft, but we're going to be a competitive team. I would say expect that from the Chicago Bulls. Expect certain moves to be made. I think Zach LaVine could be out of there. I think DeMar DeRozan could be another name that's also on the move. But for the most part, I would say the Bulls are not going to go full-scale rebuild with this whole thing. I think that they're more likely to go with a retool, try and trade Zach LaVine for players that can come back and still keep your team competitive.
If you trade Zach and DeMar, what players are coming in to help them be retooled right now? Like, you're talking about Vooch would still be there, Caruso maybe, Patrick Williams, Kobe White. Like, I just don't see that team competing with anything if you remove those two guys.
It depends on who you trade them to, right? Like, everybody's of the mindset that if I trade these guys away, all I'm trading them for is draft capital, and that's it. We're done. We're out of here, right? Like, what if you trade them for players that are competitive players? What if the Miami Heat are probably the #1 team that's on the phone with the Chicago Bulls? I would think. You want to know why? Because they literally went into the offseason and said, we can't miss out on a premier player. And then they missed out on a premier player.
Several, yeah.
Hey, I mean, and now listen,
they missed out on one that said he wanted to come there.
I will say this: Jaime Jaquez has been playing some good basketball. I can't deny it. I don't know if he should have held up the Dame trade, but Jaime Jaquez,
he's not the new Taylor Horton Tucker.
He's not. He's been playing some good basketball. He's been playing some good. Now, I don't know if it lasts through a season, but I will give my man's credit where credit is due. He still looks like a pirate. But if the Chicago Bulls decide to say, we want to trade Zach LaVine to Miami, and they send you back Tyler Hero and whatever it is, because I don't know if that relationship fixed itself. Does that then all of a sudden change the mindset around the Bulls? Because, yeah, maybe they're not the best or the worst team in the NBA, or not the best team in the NBA, but they certainly won't be the worst team in the NBA.
Interesting. I think LaVine gets moved. I think Caruso gets moved because I think you can get stuff for him. I think that there will be contenders out there that will give you stuff. Like, I think they need to just tear it down. I don't think there's not stuff to build around anymore, right? Like, there's not, like, you can talk about the Denver Nuggets approach to it, but if you don't have stuff to build around right now, like if you're losing your best player in there, and then maybe you're also thinking about DeRozan and he leaves next year, like, who's the guy that steps up then and makes them become that type of team?
You're talking about building around. I'm talking about remaining competitive. Those are two very different things. And I think that is a path that we saw Denver take, where Denver for years wasn't building around anybody. Denver was just trying to find the right young draft piece that they were going to bring in, while they had Al Horford came in there for, not Al Horford, Al Jefferson came in there for a year. They just brought guys that Paul Millsap was there for a little while, right? Like, they just brought guys in who were good players, but they were never going to get you to the mountaintop, to a championship. Like, I agree that the logical thing to do would say, you probably need to start over. You need to develop young players. You need to start moving this in the right direction. It's Chicago Bulls. I haven't thought about logic with the Bulls in 20 years.
Do they have young players to build around? Like, do you think anything of Patrick Williams, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu? Like, are you looking at any of these guys going, all right, maybe in a bigger role with these guys out of the way, Dalen Terry, your boy Julian Phillips? Like, are any of these guys, can they take another step?
In my opinion, no. I think Acme has done a terrible job drafting right now. I see what he sees in Patrick Williams. Like, I see the potential he sees. I don't think Patrick Williams sees it. I think that Kobe White is a nice player. He's developing in the right direction. If you give him 20 shots, he's probably going to be able to score 25 points a game. Like, he's a good scorer, but I don't think that he's a future piece that you can build your entire team around. I think that they're now heading into this draft saying we need something middle of it. And Dalen Terry's a nightmare. 18th overall picks play. They're not in the G League. They shouldn't be in the G League. Like, we've seen 18th overall picks make an impact in the NBA right now. Acme has done a terrible job drafting from the Patrick Williams draft on. I like Ayo Dosunmu. But at the end of the day, Ayo Dosunmu was a second-round pick, right? Like, yeah, you hit on Ayo Dosunmu. That's a nice piece there. But you're talking about a role player at best right now.
And he's 24
that's
already. I mean,
yeah, I mean, like, and you're talking about a role player at best. Like, there's not much here to build around. You're probably trying to go into this draft and find something in that Dalen Terry range. The real question that most Bulls fans have at this point is, can Acme ever get back to the drafting point where he was at in AK or in Denver? Because it hasn't happened here in Chicago.
It hasn't yet. If you had to call it, make a call right now. Who is traded? So the Darnell Mayberry thing was, it won't be the same roster in a month. Who's gone in a month?
I believe Zach LaVine for sure will be gone in a month. I would almost say DeMar DeRozan is probably gone. I think AC is still on this team. I think Nikola Vucevic are still on this team. I think both of them are pieces that the Bulls want to hold on to for culture. And excitingly enough, you'll be able to hear all that from Darnell Mayberry tomorrow on Locked On Bulls. So tune in for that as well.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what we call a tease in the broadcast.
Big tease, big tease. Pull up. Nobody's coming over. Nobody cares.
I think Caruso and LaVine are gone. I think DeRozan stays for whatever reason.
Yeah. The only thing about DeRozan is right now, I would assume it would be so Bulls to keep DeRozan, but the last report that we heard is I love reports like this. They said they're far apart on years and money.
Oh, so besides that, everything is decided.
That's my favorite thing. It's like Charles Barkley yesterday when he was talking about the Clippers. He said the Clippers are too small, they're too slow to get to the bucket, they don't shoot the 3-ball well, and they can't defend. I was like, Chuck, there's nothing left in basketball.
What else?
That's all basketball is.
They don't score the ball and they don't defend. What are you doing out there?
Shout out Koo.
Just kidding.
Shout out Koo.
Koo with his 3-and-D. By the way, I saw a wild stat the other day. How many games since Sadiq Bey was traded to the Hawks have the Pistons won? That was like last season.
Yeah. 4.
4.
Yeah.
They've won 4 games.
Yeah. That's weird that I can get trivia like that. Like, I can get that trivia, but I was
holding up 4 fingers. I just want.
I probably should have looked at your hand. I feel like I cheated.
Oh, there you go. The Chicago Bulls. The blow up is happening.
Gross. It's gross.
It's gross. Go listen to Pat the Designer and Hayes. Go listen to Darnell Mayberry tomorrow. Try to explain how this is all going to work. So go listen to that on Locked On Bulls. I was Locked On Mavs. Mavs got a big win against a bounce back win. Maybe not a big win, but a bounce back win that they needed. They're 9-3 right now. Second in the West. Is it real? We talk about it all on Locked On Mavs. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA.
Bye-bye.
Boom.